The connection between your home and your mental state is not metaphorical. It is physiological, measurable, real. Neuroscience has now confirmed what Japanese households have understood for centuries. Visual disorder elevates cortisol, the stress hormone, continuously and cumulatively. Every unnecessary object in your visual field makes a small demand on your attention. Every surface covered in things that don't belong there keeps your nervous system in a low-grade state of alert. You don't notice it consciously. Your body notices it completely. This is why a clean home doesn't just look better, it feels better. And why the feeling disappears so quickly after a surface cleaning, because surface cleaning doesn't address what's underneath. The Japanese method I want to share with you today does address what's underneath. It's called osoji, and it is not a cleaning technique. It is a practice of renewal. And once you understand the difference, you'll understand why 40 years of Western-style cleaning left my home looking managed, but never feeling peaceful, and why everything changed when I finally came back to what I'd grown up with. I'm Keiko Nakamura, and Tadachi Incidenti Ait. I'm 72. I grew up in Osaka, in a home that had this quality of peace I've spent most of my adult life trying to recreate. My mother and grandmother practiced osoji with intention twice a year, and their homes carried the effects of that practice throughout the months between. There was a lightness to those spaces, a quality of air, a sense that the home itself was on your side. I forgot all of it when I moved overseas in my late 20s. For nearly 4 decades, I cleaned my home without any of the understanding that made my family's cleaning meaningful. The results were predictable, a home that was sometimes tidy and never truly at peace. When I finally went back to Japan in my early 60s, spent real time with family, and looked honestly at how they still lived, the answer was obvious and devastating in its simplicity. I hadn't been cleaning wrong. I hadn't been cleaning at all. Not in the way that matters. What osoji actually addresses, the literal translation of osoji is great cleaning, enjitista adawi kreichio. But the Japanese concept of cleaning, suji in its everyday form, osoji in its deeper seasonal practice, encompasses something that Western cleaning doesn't attempt. In Japan, the home is understood as an extension of the self. The state of your space reflects and influences the state of your mind. A cluttered home is not simply inconvenient. It is a form of unfinished business, accumulated incompletion, the physical residue of things not dealt with, decisions not made, objects held past their usefulness out of habit or guilt or vague future intention. Osoji addresses this at the root. It is not about cleaning surfaces. It is about honestly assessing what belongs in your space, releasing what doesn't, attending to what is broken or neglected, and returning the home to a state where everything present has earned its presence. The cleaning industry sells you products to clean around your possessions. Osoji asks whether the possessions should be there at all. This is an extraordinarily different question, and it's one that no branded product can answer for you. In temples, monks practice forms of cleaning as a meditative discipline, present, deliberate, unhurried. The act of cleaning is understood as an act of respect for the space, and through the space, for the self. This is not mysticism. It is a practical understanding that how you maintain your environment expresses and reinforces how you relate to your life, the emotional layer that no one in the West talks about. When I did my first serious osoji after returning from Japan, I was not prepared for what I found underneath the cleaning. Objects carry associations. A dress kept because getting rid of it feels like admitting you've changed. A gift kept because the person who gave it would be hurt to know it was gone, even if they'll never know. Equipment from a hobby you used to love and can't quite let yourself admit you've moved past. papers from a role you used to play that ended but that you've never quite officially closed. These objects are not neutral. They are anchors to versions of yourself that may no longer exist, to obligations you've already fulfilled, to guilt about things you cannot now change. Each one adds to the weight of your space in ways that no cleaning product addresses. Osoji requires you to pick up each object and make an honest decision, not a comfortable one, not a quick one. An honest one. Does this belong in my life as it is now? Does it serve who I am today? If the answer is no, the object is released, with acknowledgement, with gratitude for whatever it gave you, without guilt. I have held objects during Osoji and cried, not from grief, or not only from grief, fermechi. So kanai ya aprete itichi, from relief. The release of something I'd been carrying without quite admitting I was carrying it. An old life, a completed chapter, a version of myself I'd been too afraid to let go of. This is what Osoji is. Not cleaning, clearing. And the difference in how a home feels after genuine clearing rather than surface cleaning is not subtle. I want to pause here and tell you about something. While I was rebuilding these practices in my own home over the first years after that return trip to Japan, room by room, season by season, I koe and torkotsestat. I atiorchaden and chigis and I was writing, trying to understand what was happening, why this was working when so many other approaches hadn't, what the philosophy underneath each practice actually was, stripped of the cultural packaging and expressed in terms of what it does to a mind, to a body, to a life. The writing became a book. I called it House Mind Peace because that sequence is what Osoji actually produces in that order. The house changes first. The mind follows. The peace arrives. It's in the pinned comment below this video. Readers write to me about it often. Constance from the UK wrote to say she'd done her first Osoji at 69 after reading it and described sitting in her cleared living room afterward, feeling something she could only call stillness, a quality of quiet she hadn't experienced in her home in years. Bernard from France said he'd been resistant to anything that sounded like it was about feelings rather than practical cleaning, but his daughter gave him the book and he read it and then spent 3 days going through his home methodically, and his comment was simply, "I didn't know a house could feel like this." May from Singapore. She grew up in a traditional household and, like me, had lost these practices over decades of Western life. Wrote to say the book brought her back to something she'd grieved without being able to name. It's in the pinned comment. Now, how to actually practice this. I'm preparing to practice Osoji. Osoji is not something you do in a spare hour. It is a dedicated practice that requires both time and the right mental orientation. Choose a day with no competing obligations. A full day if possible, or 2 half-days across a weekend. This is not negotiable. Attempting Osoji while half attending to other responsibilities produces neither good cleaning nor the mental reset that makes Osoji valuable. Before you begin, spend a few minutes with intention, not a formal ritual, just jadati, denji tipe, abatfari, enti tipe, and just a moment of clarity about what you're doing and why. You are not cleaning your house. You are renewing your space so that it can support the life you want to live. That orientation changes how the work feels and what it produces. Gather what you need before starting. Bags for disposal, boxes for donation, cleaning materials for the surfaces themselves. Having everything ready means the work flows without interruption. And approach the process without perfectionism. Osoji is not about achieving an ideal state. It is about genuine engagement with your space, asking honest questions, making real decisions, attending to what has been neglected. Progress, not perfection. Honest engagement, not performance. The practice itself, sequence and principles. Begin at the top of each space and work downward. Ceiling first, light fixtures, the tops of shelves, curtain rails, any surface that accumulates dust above eye level. Dust falls. If you clean the floor first and then the ceiling, you clean the floor twice. Working from top to bottom is the efficient sequence, and it's the sequence my grandmother used without ever explaining why. Agi attract then and dying audifis and setis. It was simply obvious to her. Move through each room in a consistent direction. The traditional clockwise movement has a practical function beyond symbolism. It ensures you don't skip areas or return to spaces you've already addressed. Systematic rather than reactive. In each space, the work divides into two distinct practices: cleaning the fixed elements of the room and assessing the objects within it. Cleaning fixed elements, surfaces, floors, walls, windows, is the part most people do, incompletely, in regular cleaning. Osoji does this thoroughly, including the areas that regular cleaning skips: the backs of shelves, the inside of drawers, the corners behind furniture, the areas under rugs, the spaces behind appliances. The cleaning industry provides products for all of these surfaces. Most of them are unnecessary. A damp cloth addresses most surfaces. White vinegar diluted with water handles most residue and bacterial content. Baking soda addresses odors and staining. The specialty products marketed for each specific surface type are, in nearly every case, unnecessary elaborations on this basic chemistry, packaged expensively and marketed as if their specificity reflects genuine necessity. It does not. Assessing objects is the deeper and more demanding part of Osoji. For each object in the space, the questions are: do I use this? Does it belong to who I am now? Would I choose it again today if I were starting fresh? 3 categories emerge. Stays because it serves your current life genuinely. Goes to someone who can use it because it's functional, but not for you. Disposed of because it is broken, expired, or genuinely without value to anyone. The hardest objects are the ones held by guilt, obligation, or hypothetical future need. The dress that represents a size you might return to. The equipment for the hobby you loved and haven't touched in 4 years. The gifts from people whose feelings you're protecting by keeping things they'll never know are gone. These objects cost you something every time you encounter them. Not dramatically, but but quietly, persistently, in the form of a small weight, a small reminder of incompletion, a small tightening that you've learned to ignore. Osoji asks you to stop ignoring it, to make the decision, to release with acknowledgement rather than defer indefinitely. The parts of the home most people avoid. Osoji includes spaces that regular cleaning never reaches and that cause significant ongoing stress precisely because they're unaddressed. Paperwork and financial administration, unopened correspondence, unpaid bills, documents filed in random places or not filed at all, financial decisions deferred. These are some of the heaviest objects in a home because they carry active obligation. Part of Osoji is sitting with this material, addressing what needs addressing, filing what needs keeping, and releasing what is outdated. The relief that follows attending to neglected financial and administrative matters is immediate and significant. Broken things. A drawer that doesn't close properly. A light that doesn't work. A handle that's loose. A small appliance that stopped functioning 6 months ago. These small brokennesses are present in almost every home, and they register continuously, adding to the ambient sense that things are not quite right. Osoji repairs what can be repaired and removes what cannot. A home where everything works is a different experience from a home where small things are perpetually broken. Stored items that haven't been accessed accessed, boxes not opened since the last move, items kept in storage because they might be needed someday. These require the same honest assessment as any other object. If they haven't been needed in years, the someday they're being preserved for may never come, and their ongoing storage is a continuing claim on your space and attention. Maintaining what Osoji creates. The state Osoji produces, genuinely cleared, genuinely clean, genuinely attended to, is maintained through the small daily habits I've described in other videos, returning objects to their places, dealing with small things immediately, not allowing accumulation to begin. But it is also maintained through repetition of Osoji itself. This is the practice my family used. Twice a year, a genuine renewal. Not because the home had deteriorated to a crisis state, because renewal at regular intervals prevents deterioration from reaching crisis. At the midpoint of the year and at the end of the year, return to the full practice. Assess again. What has accumulated since the last clearing? What has shifted in your life, and what objects no longer reflect who you are now? What small repairs have been deferred and now need attention? Each Osoji builds on the previous one. As the accumulation is consistently cleared before it builds to an overwhelming level, each session becomes shorter and the maintenance between sessions becomes easier. The home enters a rhythm of genuine care rather than crisis management. My mother's home had this rhythm for her entire adult life. Mine didn't. For 40 years it didn't. The difference in how those two homes felt to be in was not subtle, and it wasn't about decor or size or money spent. It was about whether the home was genuinely cared for or merely managed. I know what both feel like from the inside now. Managing is exhausting. Caring is restoring. The practice of Osoji is available to anyone. It requires no products, no expense, no special equipment. It requires time, honesty, and the willingness to ask real questions about what your space should contain and what it's been carrying that it no longer needs to. Your home can be peaceful, not as an aesthetic achievement, but as a genuine quality of the space you inhabit, one that affects your mind, your sleep, your relationships, your sense of yourself. This is what my grandmother's home felt like. It is what mine feels like now. House, mind, peace. The full account of how I came back to this practice and what it changed is in the pinned comment below. And I'll see you in the next video where the simplicity, as always, goes further than you might expect.